Good morning everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world watching. Today's Sony Rumours and news and other things that I'll go through. Just want to say good day from down under. This is just a little bit of a pre-show until we get everyone on board, because usually it takes just a few minutes for everyone to get on board. So, hi Ario, how are you? Good to see you here. If you are watching this a little bit later, just skip to where I go to the Sony Images logo, and then you can actually start the show from there, because we'll give it a couple of minutes and then we'll start. I've got some really interesting things to talk to you about today. Say hi if you are in the chat, because I'd love to see who's there. Hey Altric, how are you? Good to see you on board again. It's good to see now most of you are starting to make this. It's, what, 10:30 here, Australian time. G'day Tony, how are you, mate? Which means overseas at the moment, Los Angeles it's 4:30 p.m, New York it's 7:30 p.m, and London it's 12:30 a.m. in the morning. So all over the place at the moment, but it's 10:30. So I'll have this and then I'll obviously go out for my usual morning coffee. Delta Dave's here. G'day mate, how you going? Good to see you here. Got some interesting things to talk to you today about, a few interesting rumours that I want to actually chat with you all about as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what you guys have to say. Just to let you know too that I did do a shoot last night, which was, just let me take this pre-show off. I just did this shoot last night on my GH4. I wanted to see how it went for portraiture. I did post one pic already that you can see on Facebook. And I'm quite surprised actually how nice it looks. I'm going to have a video of that up, hopefully today, part of it anyway, that I'll be showing you how it actually works. So I'll have that up later today for people. I've had a number of people ask me when I was going to actually post that video up, so it should be up soon. Now we'll give it another minute and then we'll start, guys. So I'm just going to say hi in the chat. Now we will have, obviously the chat will keep going as I'm talking, and I'll bring that back up a little bit later on for questions, and I'll talk about that again in a second, because I'll leave a question time at the end that we can all have a chat, and I'll go through the questions that you have asked as we've gone on today. So you can keep chatting amongst yourselves in there as well, but I will stop it at the end and give enough time to actually come back and we can go through them all together. So we'll do that soon as well. Alright guys, well I think we might start. So I'm going to cut over to the Sony Images logo and we'll start from there. So just hang on just for a second. G'day everyone from down under, another lovely day here in Melbourne, Australia. I'm just actually about to start my wedding season, so the weddings actually are starting to pick up now. I've got one wedding tomorrow, then I think I've got another couple of weeks off. Oh, Delta Dave, that's fantastic. I've got this donation already, wow, that's amazing. I haven't even started yet, Dave, what's going on? That's funny. Thank you so much for that, I love your support, I really do appreciate it. Now, I've got another wedding, like I said, on tomorrow, which you'll probably see if you're actually looking on my Facebook page. You'll see how that's going. I'm not photographing this. This is one of the few ones where I'm not doing fusion. I'm just going in doing straight photography. So that's going to be on tomorrow. And then obviously all the weddings then start to pick up. I think I have 2 weeks off and then weddings kick in again, and I've got a few dance things that I'm doing and stuff like that. So I've got a lot that's happening over the next few months. This starts to get into my peak season now. So things really start to pick up. Just to let you know, the people that were asking about me doing the GH5 review for portraiture, I did do that last night. I actually filmed it. And I'll probably, hopefully, get that on today, or part of it. So I'd like to have time, hopefully, that I can get a little bit of that up so that I can show you how the results were. I did put a sneak peek on Facebook yesterday, so that's there now. Also, if you join my photography Facebook page, especially linked to this YouTube program, you'll see it in there as well, and you also get behind the scenes as well. So make sure, guys, you do join that, because that's important, because it sort of lets me do other things or expand on what I'm actually giving you here on YouTube. So please join that as well. I'll put the link down below as soon as we finish, so you'll actually see that, and I might even bring up that page at the end so we can have a look at it all together. I just wanted to thank Dave. Delta Dave gave me a wonderful donation. He's put it into the Profoto A1 jar. I've got plenty of time there, Dave, because it's not released until early next year, but I can tell you I will be buying one. I've been really happy with how that flash works. We got Oreo here, Altrix here, Sam's here, I'm De Brown's here, Delta Dave, obviously, Mark's here, Johnny Boy's here from the UK, David's here as well. Who else? We got Richard as well. So we've got stacks actually watching now, so it's going to be great. Now, there is some really interesting news this morning that I thought we'd look at all together. So I'm going to go through the news in a second and rumours, and then we'll also go to the end where we can have questions and you can ask questions down. So please leave your questions on the live chat. And I will come back to that. I have a point set at the end where I'll bring up the questions and we can all go through those together. So I will answer all of your questions that you'd like to know. So just keep chiming in. It's just that I'm not going to go back to the chat board until the end, but I will go back to all of that as well. I'm just laughing at I am De Brown, one of the comments that he's made. Now, you'll have to be on live to see what he just said. Tony, you're a crack up. I might talk about that a little bit later. That's funny. All right, so let's go over to the news, so latest rumours. So I'm going to come over to here. Now, let's have a look at this, because this is a really interesting article that I actually saw this morning. Basically, what it's talking about here is, let me just remove this. Actually, I can leave the chat there. Basically, it's talking about speculating about a possible A7S III, or it may be an A9s. They're not actually sure yet, just let me move this, what the camera is going to be, but they're saying that on October the 18th, there's going to definitely be an announcement of a new Sony camera. Now, let's just hope it's not like it was last time, but they're saying that of that I'm 1000% sure, so this is from Sony Alpha Rumours. And the chances are good that this might be the new A7S III. As we all know from a reliable source, it has the same A9 so focusing system. So they're saying it's going to have the same focusing system of the A9. And as the rest of it, it's speculation. But they're saying, if you look down the bottom here, that if you look at it, they're saying that I was on Sony Alpha this weekend. Some employees from Sony were present. One of them told me that there was rumours about a Sony A9s that combines the low light capability of the A7S II with the incredible sensor of the Sony A9. There could also be features like 4K 60p. Well, surely let's hope that they do put 4K 60p on there. I mean, honestly, if they don't put that in, I'll be so disappointed. 4K 60p. And a complete new gamma profile. So I'm not sure what they mean by that. So that's going to be interesting in itself. What they're saying is a complete new gamma profile. He said that they can't confirm that properly, but that it's very possible. And they're also saying down the bottom down here that if the info is correct, which obviously we cannot take for granted, this sounds like the A9 camera trim for video. If true, I hope that Sony has improved the A9. Well, they're saying that they're hoping that they've improved these things from the A9. For example, real advanced touchscreen features, 2 fast SD card slots, articulating screen, and so on. Anyway, that's just speculation, but this is what they're talking about with this camera. So this is a really interesting rumour, because this doesn't surprise me actually in one little bit. And there's another thing I'll talk about too in the A7 III, and we'll look at that in a second. But this sort of makes sense to me, and this is why I also think that they left the picture profiles out of the A9. I believe that they wanted to give the A9 a chance to get ahead, which is probably what they've done. And now they're going to bring out a video-centric A9. So I wouldn't think that this is going to be called an A7S III. I think it's probably going to be called an A9s. Well, that's what my feeling is on this as well. Now, this could be an incredible camera. If this has the focusing of the A9, which I can tell you is amazing, and I've used that in video as well, and it does actually work really well. And the video of the A9, I think, is the sharpest video out of all of the Sony cameras. I think it's actually even a little bit sharper than the A6500 in the testing that I've done. So it is going to be an incredible camera, and if you add the low light abilities of the A7 A7S into that, this really will be an incredible camera to get your hands on, because it will have the low light features of the A7S, so you'll be able to shoot in basically blackness. It will have the video focusing of the A9, which is just incredible. Like I said, I don't like going back to my A7R II now, mostly for the focus, because the focus just works so well on that camera that I don't like to go back to my A9. So if this camera has the same focusing as the A9, it will be unbelievable. And, you know, I mean, I really don't think, I don't know if I can justify to get that, to be honest, at this stage, because I'm comfortable with my Fusion side of it, with using the A6300, the A6500, and the A7R II if I need video in that respect. But 12 months down the track, I probably will get this camera as well. So it's something anyway that it's going to be released. Now, it's going to be expensive. I think this will be even more expensive than the A9, because it was dearer than the A7R II when that came out. The A7S II was dearer. So I think that this, again, is going to be a lift above that as well. Obviously, it's not going to have the fast shutter speed of the A9. Now, there is a couple of interesting things, though, because they do have to upgrade the dual card slots. If they're dealing with 4K 60p, I can't see that being fast enough with a slower card slot. So they probably are going to have to try and put the 2 fast slots into it, not 1 fast slot and 1 slower slot. So that's going to be interesting to see how they handle that respect, and why they never put that in the A9. So that gives you a sort of interesting discussion on that. But they're also saying, well, what about the A7 III? And that's what this next article is about. And they're saying that they believe here that the A7 III is going to be released early in 2018, so first quarter in 2018. They're saying that the Sony A7 III will ship in early 2018, date uncertain at this stage, so whether this will still be announced later this year and then they'll release it next year. I don't think the A9 probably even will be released this year. It may be announced, but I think we might have to wait till early next year before it's released. That's just my feeling on it, unless they try and get it out before Christmas. They're saying that the A7 III to release early 2018, still rumoured to be a 24 megapixel camera with 6 frames per second. Mechanical, touchscreen, 4K 30p, and up to 200,000 ISO. So that's what they're saying about that, and it's going to be released in 2018. When was this? No, there's another article. I'm going to talk about that as well. So let me know what you think about those dates. Do you think that's probably what's going to happen? Do you think that it's actually going to be an A9s that's released next? And that doesn't surprise me, like I said, how they left picture profiles out of the A9. I think Sony now have definitely moved down to the point where they want separate cameras. They want a video camera specifically, and then a more of a portrait camera, or a sports camera, which will be the A9, and then they'll have more of a landscape type camera, which will be the new A7 III or the A9R or whatever that will be. So they're definitely going to have different cameras for specific needs. But let's continue on, because I wanted to talk about this as well, because there's some interesting facts over here, because they're saying that Nikon and Canon both are going to have full frame mirrorless cameras in 2018. And this is an interesting article, because they're saying, what will Sony's reaction be to this? And I thought some of these points are really interesting, because Sony may then have to address this. And this is why I said to you all along that competition is a great thing. And I really do believe that. And that's why I would never want Nikon or Canon to disappear, or even Panasonic, because the more competition that's out there, and the more this will push Sony to give us better features and better cameras. And they're saying here that perhaps these are things that Sony have got to address if Canon and Nikon bring out a new mirrorless camera. They're saying lower the price of the Sony camera and lenses, because it's going to be interesting to see what their price point is when they come out with these new cameras. So it will be interesting. And they're saying there that will Sony have to lower the prices of their cameras and lenses, make them more accessible for people to join the E-mount system, improve on the delivering more mature software. In other words, fix things like the star EDA issue, etc. And it's things like too, like firmware as well, that they have to start giving us firmware more often, and hopefully with more features. Like I said, the new one that they did with the GH4 or the GH5 the other day added so many extra features, and it's incredible what other features that's given me. And actually, even today, there's another one released again that fixes a couple of things which were a little bit bodgy and that. So they've released a firmware in around 2 weeks again on that. That's things that Sony really do have to start offering us. Remember, if you're dealing with companies too like Fuji, look what Fuji offer their systems. They're giving basically new features in cameras that are 4 or 5 years old, and that's incredible. And that is a great feature to give to people that you know, for people that are in that system. So they may have to start doing this a little bit more, Sony, and stop leaving things out. They're saying that here, the add functions that are no longer available on other camera systems, like full touchscreen functionality. In other words, give us a full touchscreen. Sony, there's no reason why Sony can't give us a full touchscreen. They make mobile phones. They should easily be able to give us a full touchscreen and also a flip-out screen on these things. That would be so much better to have a full flip-out screen, and I really hope that that's released sooner or later. And real ISO 64, because that is a big advantage, being able to shoot at 64 ISO instead of 100, especially if you're dealing in very light, bright conditions. It's great to be able to lower your ISO so that you can use a faster aperture, for instance, or even if you're doing things like slow waterfalls where you want to slow the water down. Having a lower ISO is always a better feature. Improve the service. They're saying that service in some countries is still an issue, and all I can talk about is here in Australia. I think the Sony service is amazing. I think now in the States it's getting better and better, and even in the UK they've added some spots there, but they obviously still have to improve that service as well. And keep chiming in with your questions, guys, because I will come back and we'll look at those all together. So service is still an issue, but like I said, they have addressed that here in Australia, and hopefully they'll address that now in the rest of the world as well. Add functions that are no longer available. We've already discussed that. Don't do unnecessary cuts on hardware. The A9 should have 2 fast SD card slots, and USB 3 should have been a long standard. And that's true. I don't really understand why they never put USB 3 in the A9, and really it was a bit silly having one slower card slot in the camera, and I don't really understand why they would do that. There's no reason really why they should have had to have done that, unless there's some reason that the processor couldn't take writing to 2 fast cards at the same time. That may be a processor issue, I'm not sure, but really that needs to be addressed where they do hold back. And like I said, even with the A9 holding back on the picture profiles, which is the first time they've done that, I really wish Sony wouldn't have done that, and they would have given that ability to shoot with those picture profiles. I did mention before that the video is astounding. It is. It's really, really good on the A9. I just would have liked those picture profiles for times where I'm shooting in incredibly bright light, and that would have been, you know, advantageous to it to have actually done that. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. Like I said, we'll come back to that shortly. Let's go to this other thing. Samyang have now released the FE 35 1.4 lens, so it's finally been released. I haven't, like I said, I haven't used it or tried it, but from what I've heard, it actually is very, very good in performance. And it's only €669, which is really a good price. So, I mean, if I hadn't got the Sony 35, perhaps I may have been interested in this. It'll be interesting to see when some reviews come out. Hopefully that'll be out soon. But like I said, as you know who are following me, this is my favourite focal length with the 85mm focal length. So if you can't afford the Sony, this may be an option for you to get in much cheaper, because I think it's around about 50% cheaper than what the Sony version is. Others that have used Samyang have said the lenses are really good to me. I've only gone down the native route, so I can't sort of tell you how good these third-party lenses are, but apparently some of the people that have got the other lenses have said they're great. So, but if you were struggling for finances, this may be a great option that you can use if you want to get a 35. And remember, like I said, that's the perfect focal length for me, and being a 1.4 aperture, it's going to be very fast in low light situations. So personally for me, 35, 85, I could shoot a wedding with that no problem. I wouldn't need another lens. I could actually just do that. Like I've said to you before, I usually do take other lenses, but I could get by with a wedding with just the 35 and the 85. And I could do 99.9% of my shoots with just those two lenses. So let's go on to the other thing. Oh, this was interesting. I saw this today. They're saying that the Sony A9 wasn't the first A9 because this Minolta lens, which was released, do they say? 1998 it was released, and it was actually the Alpha A9. So they've actually reused it, which is really interesting. When I saw that this morning, I thought, wow, that wouldn't happen very often. So that's a really interesting discussion that you can read through there. And don't forget, I'll put all these links down below, so you'll be able to read all these links later on, because I will put the links below in the description box down below. So that's interesting. If you thought the Sony A9 was the first, it's not. There was one actually done in 1998. Also want to talk to you about this too, which is the DXO Mark score has just come out for the D850, and it does top the A7R II by a margin of 2 points. And what they're saying is that's mostly down in ISO 64, where it's about a stop faster than what the A7R II is. The only area where the A7R II is better is actually in low light. So the low light score in the A7R II is better, and you can see that down here where it's saying the D850 is 2660 ISO, and the Sony A7R II is 3434 ISO. But both of them are around about 2 stops better than the Canon, so you know, it shows how much further or how much ahead the Nikon and the Sony cameras are. But remember, the Sony camera here is 2 years old, over that probably now. So I think it's really held its own if you look at that, when you think that's just been released and they're very, very close in how they actually work. So I'm dying to see what they bring out with the new A7R3 or A9R, whatever it's going to be. That's going to blow them all out of the water, I think. So that's going to be a really interesting one. But so really, if you're looking at these DxO Mark scores, and remember, everyone takes that with a grain of salt. It's just a figure. It's just something that you can look at to sort of see where your camera is rated. But the A7R II still holds its own even now after 2.5 years or whatever it is since its release. And that's why I'm still so happy with that camera. And that's the reason why I probably won't update that camera for another 12 months or so. But yeah, you can read that as well. Like I said, you can have a look at those down below if you want to check out that as well. And the last news article that I wanted to bring to you was this, because this is interesting, because this camera, if you read this article, they're saying that travellers like to visit Thailand for cheap foods, medical procedures, etc., and other wholesale reasons. One other thing they often overlook is the repair service in Thailand. You can almost always repair any gadget for a reasonable price. Now, what's happened here, this person, I don't think they name it, but this person said that he was trying to get an A6000 actually fixed. Where's there? He was trying to get the A6000 fixed in California. He's saying a big wave in the ocean unexpectedly splashed over me and my camera while I was taking pictures. The water felt refreshing until I realised how wet my camera was. So he had water damage actually in his camera. Now, the interesting part is, though, that when he set that off, he said he tried to dry it as best as he could. And it's a small town where he lives. But basically what he did, he sent this camera off to Precision Camera, which I believe is the place that Sony fix their cameras in the US. And basically, anyway, he got that sent back to him because they said it was too dear to fix it. Basically, it wasn't worth it. It would have cost more to fix the camera than it would have to actually buy a new one, for instance. I think that's what they're actually saying here. So that's really interesting when they're saying that. So basically, when it came back, they said it's not worth fixing, and they sent it back to him. And basically, so what he did was he went to Thailand. I think he obviously was going to on a holiday in Thailand. And he said he found a service centre in Thailand, which they fixed the camera. Now, they said, when I dropped the camera off to Sony, they charged me 100 baht, which is $3 for the inspection. So they've only charged him $100 for the inspection. Now, did he say what the inspection cost him for in the US? I don't think he did. Whether he does a little bit later, I'm not sure. He just said that they sent it back after a week after he sent it to Precision Camera, saying in a note in the box saying that the warranty does not cover the repair service since the camera was damaged by water. The note also said that the cost of the repair would be too high. They didn't ask me at all if I wished to repair at my own expense. So anyway, when he went to Thailand, it cost him $3 US to get the inspection fee for the camera, and they said they wouldn't get this back. Which is quite funny, $3. Anyway, so then he ended up getting it fixed, and they said it was originally going to be to repair the camera 1,800 baht, which was $54. Without hesitation, I gave the green light, and they said she informed me that the process would take about a week or two. They'd have to wait for parts to arrive. Anyway, a few days later, they got a note to say that the technician also found some other additional parts that were needing repair. The repair would now cost 2,800 baht, which was $84. And I thought that was a bit high, but we went ahead with it anyway. So it was $84 they fixed this camera for. And there's the receipt down here that you can see for it to actually be fixed. So it ended up being $84 US, which is interesting. So so when he was over there, if you go to Thailand, guys, it might be the place to get a camera fixed. The interesting thing is sometimes in here in Australia, they do this for things like medical, where they'll go and get dental teeth done because it's so much cheaper over there. You can go and have a holiday done, and it's cheaper to go and do that and have your teeth fixed than it is to actually get it done in Australia. And a lot of women also get their breasts enlarged over there. There's plastic surgery that gets done over there because you can have a holiday and it's still cheaper than if you get it done in Australia. So it may be the same if you've got a Sony camera, that especially if it was something like an A9 or an A7R2 that you had to get fixed. And they even sent all the parts back that actually changed on the camera. So that's a really interesting article. So I thought that I'd share that with you because I thought that was really funny. $84, and Sony in the US had said don't bother, it's going to be too expensive to fix. Wow, I mean, that's crazy. Let me just bring this up here and we'll go through questions. So let's now go through question time. So I'm going to go back through all your questions, guys, and we'll have a look at what you're saying. So if you have any others, please feel free to ask any others. Let's have a look. David Johnson said, oh, it was a pleasure. Autofocus is the Achilles heel of the A7S too. Yes, it is. I had the A7S. I recently sold that camera actually, but it was terrible, yeah, in autofocus. But to be honest, you know what, I'm not worried about the autofocus. I'm quite comfortable shooting manual focus now on all these cameras, and I actually enjoy doing it. But if the beauty is, like when I'm shooting with the A6500, if I want to, say, be walking towards the camera for a bit more of a dynamic thing, or put it on a gimbal, the autofocus then is so much better on those cameras, and that's where you can use that. It's a lot harder to, say, use an A7S, even the 2, on a gimbal, because the focus just isn't good enough, and there's always that chance that it might go out of focus. So having something like an A7S II video-centric camera with or an A9s video-centric camera that has the focusing of the A9 would be amazing for those times where you need to get things like that. You know, having the bride walking down the aisleway, things like that would be fantastic. So that could be a real game changer with that camera if it has got the pad of true focusing. And I would think it would have to. What else have we got here? And Oreo said the A7S II with the autofocus capabilities of the A9 would be a killer camera. Yeah, it would. It would be an amazing camera. Sony A9 4499, Sony A9s, A7 IIIs 55. And I think you might be right, Tony. I think that's going to be a really expensive camera. Way above what a lot of people may want to pay initially. So that's going to be interesting to see where they put that and where they price it. I think it'll have to be more than the A9. And that, if you look at Sony's previous history, They always price their cameras a little bit dearer. The A7S, like I said, was a bit dearer than the A7R2 initially on release. So I think you're going to find that, yeah, it will be more expensive than what the A9 is. And that's why I think now that probably the picture profiles may not come out. Although what they might do with the A9, they may just, if there's a new picture profile that they've got for the Sony A9s, perhaps then we will get the standard picture profiles on the A9. They may not give us this new profile that they're talking about that's potentially coming out on the A9s that is for this just video centric camera. They may just be waiting for that to be released, and then they may release picture profiles on the A9, but we're going to have to wait and see. Davey said another gas attack coming on. Like I said, I'm not going to buy this one, guys. There's no way, and you'll probably laugh saying you will. I won't. I will not be buying the A9s for at least 12 months. If they brought out a new A6-700, I would buy that immediately. I would get that straight away, and that's probably what I'm hoping more to get for me as a fusion photographer that I would be more interested in at this stage. Once I want to replace my A9R, or something like that, or in 12 months' time I may get something like the A9S or whatever it is that's released at the moment. What else have we got? Delta Dave said maybe Sony will finally put QXDs into a Sony camera. Well, let's hope so. I mean, that'd be great. They are expensive though. I'd just be happy if they put 2 faster slots in the new A9R S or whatever, not have one of the slower slots, because it does slow the camera down if you're shooting in continuous shutter. If you're using to both cards and backing up, it does actually slow the camera down. That's why I don't think they can work like that with 4K 60p. It's probably going to have a faster second card. Well, that's just what I'm thinking anyway, so I'm hoping that they don't put a slower one in that camera. Let's see if they can fix that. Altric said, I would like to see the A7 III. So would I, Altric, and I may get that one. That might be a camera that I'm interested in getting. Looks like that's going to be first quarter 2018 though at this stage. But that's probably one that I will probably get. I probably will get that one more than I'll get the A9S. I don't shoot, look, if I was a video professional and that's all I was shooting, I probably would get the A9S in a heartbeat. But I'm not. Remember, I'm doing fusion. I need more of a stills camera that can do video at the same time. So for me at this stage, that's why I probably wouldn't buy the A9S. But the A7 III, I probably would buy straight away. Tony said, hope the video mode model can record more than 30 minutes. I don't think it will, because I don't think that Sony want to pay the tax. Tony, I've got a feeling that they're going to keep that limitation on their cameras. The only one that seems to let that go is the Panasonic. I'm not sure why other cameras don't want to do that, and I think it probably is something to do protecting their high-end, their more higher-end end ranges like the FS7 and things like that. So I think that probably will have that recording limit on, and obviously if they've got rid of the Sony apps, the camera apps, well then you can't use the hack to get around that, so you're stuck. That's one big issue with the A9 for me, that I can't use that Play Memories hack to get that longer time recording. That's why the GH5 for me is so good, because I don't have to worry about that. I mean, I'm running the hack on all my other cameras. It's on this A6500 now. And again, it won't turn off after half an hour, so that's a great feature with that. But all the new cameras that are coming out, if they're not going to have the Play Memories apps on it, you're not going to be able to have that feature, so it is a bit of an issue. Altric said, I think I will get the A9 if there's no A7 III on the October the 18th. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be, Altric. I don't think it's going to, and I've thought all along they're going to have to bring out a video camera. They have to bring out something that will compete, for instance, with the GH5. They can't not address that situation at the moment. Because a lot of videographers are using that camera, so they have to bring out something that can compete. But I'm not sure if they're even going to be in the same market for a lot of people, because you're talking about a camera that's going to be double the expense of what the GH5 is. So it's going to be interesting to see how they both compete. There's probably still room for both of them, I think. But let's see what happens. But they have to bring out 4K 60p, I think. That's a must. They have to bring out the dual card slots, because that's also really a must now. And better focusing. What else? Canon is a wrap. Billy said, "Hi David, first time here." Well, welcome Billy. Glad to see that you actually have made it into the chat. So it's good to see other people popping in. David said, "I know the A7R2 is going on sale in a few weeks, and it's even cheap now." That camera's a good buy for what it is at the moment, guys. If you are thinking about getting one, trust me, you do not always have to get the latest and greatest camera to get the best results. That camera is still going to be relevant, and it's still going to be a good camera in 2 years' time. So if you are financially struggling a little bit, don't go into debt to buy something like the A9 or the A7S or whatever it's going to be 3. The A7R2 is still an amazing camera, and I wouldn't hesitate to still buy that today as well if I hadn't got one. And if it does get cheaper, it's going to be an amazing pickup. What else have we got? Millie said, "From South Florida, love your videos. They are very informative. Thank you so much." Well, thank you so much for watching, Minnie. Keith's here. Hi, Keith. How are you? Snapclick said, "Hello. Hi. How are you?" What else have we got here? Oreo said, "If this 35mm Samsung has the same image quality as the 50, it's certainly a lens worth buying." Yeah, and I remember you were saying that, Oreo, that you were very happy with that lens. And most people that I do hear talk about that 50mm lens love it. So it's going to be interesting to see how good that lens is. And like I said, if you were struggling a little bit for cash and it's half the price of what the Sony lens is, let's see how it goes. The only thing is, it'll be interesting to see how the autofocus and stuff works with it. Because remember, for me, if it's even a fraction slower for me, being a professional and running a wedding photography business, I can't have anything that slows down. For me, it's really important that I don't miss that second. If it's not as important to you and the focus is a little bit slower, well, that might be fine. But let's see what the reviews say before we actually talk about that. What else have we got? Keith said, "I've been saying that for the longest and no one listened to me that Sony is rebranded." Yes, it is. It is a rebranded Minolta. And that's the thing. People talk about the Sony system as being so new, but it's not. Because Sony bought out Minolta. So they brought out all of their technology, and that's why they brought out their cameras so fast, because they had that background already. Yeah, so they did. They were actually Minolta. Keith said, "I'm a Minolta shooter. I know." Aldrich said, "I need that 35 in my life." And like I said, my favourite focal length, 35mm. I'm shooting now even with this on the A6500. It's the 24 1.8, which gives you 35. I love that focal length. Aldrich said, "I'm holding to see what Sony will announce before selling my Canon 1DX." And I'd just wait. It's not going to be long, Aldrich. So like I said, hold out and just see what happens first. G'day, Ben's here with us too, guys. So hi, Ben. How are you? Oreo said, "Here, inspection at Sony service was only €20, which they subsequently deducted from the bill of the repair." And that's fine then, Oreo, isn't it? Well, that's good. It's only the repair costs are expensive, like compared to that Thailand one that I showed you a minute ago. Sam said, "I'll second that Samyang FE AF 1.8 recommendation. It's a very nice lens on my A7R2. Let us know how the focus is, guys, because I'd be curious to know." Richard said, "Question. David, you mentioned the other day that the ProPhoto trigger will now work on the A6500. Will Sony release a new firmware for it?" I think it already works with that. The message I got from ProPhoto about that the other day, Richard, was that the latest update that Sony put out, which was the previous update that Sony put out for the A6500, it works now with the ProPhoto. I haven't tried it yet, but they're saying now it does work with the ProPhoto with the A6500. So yeah, there shouldn't be any update. You do have to update the Sony Air Remote though to the latest version. You also have to update the ProPhotos, the B1s, to the latest firmware versions too, as well, and that will let it work on the A6500, I believe. Keith said, "Tony, watching this on the iPhone is just wrong. Altric said, thanks, I'm going to go full Sony mount. Right now I just have the Sony 85 1.8, a great lens. Anyone buying the new Sony lenses, if you're into an 85, you can't go past the 85 1.8. Incredibly cheap, and it's also incredibly sharp. Basically the same as the Batis. The only difference is it's missing the stabilization and the weather sealing. Quality-wise, they're almost identical. For the price that is, it's amazing. I think if I was buying a new camera now, and I was buying an 85 now, I'd be getting the 85 Sony lens. I know how this works. Hi, just in case it does. What else have we got? David said he's watching it on Galaxy Samsung. Johnny Hall said, hi you, Johnny. Altric said, what about the A7R2 for weddings? File's way too big. Yep. Look, if I'm shooting on the A7R2, and I do shoot a lot in weddings, I shoot in crop mode, so I'm shooting Super 35. It gives me about an 18 megapixel file size. Fantastic for that. And then as soon as I'm out doing the main portraits, I'll go into the full frame mode because I want all of the resolution. So you can use the A7R2, just use it in crop mode, and I don't think enough people do that. There's no real loss in doing it that way. It's just that you're then getting an 18 megapixel file size. You could down res later, but I just shoot in that and it's fine for me. You've just got to remember though that it affects your lenses, obviously. You know, so if you want 35, well then you'd need to put 24 roughly on there. So you do have to, that's the issue if you shoot Super 35, it does affect your wide angle lenses. But it gives you more reach as well, so there can be big advantages about shooting Super 35. So don't hesitate to shoot Super 35 with the A7R2. I do it all the time, and it works fantastic. What else have we got? Keith said buy a 1 terabyte hard drive. Delta Dave, Sony typically runs a lot of sales at Thanksgiving. Oh, okay, well that's interesting. What else have we got? Now I'm running, just to let you know, I've got two drives that I'm running, Thunderbolt 2 drives with 4 drives in each, and they have 4 gigabytes in each drive, so they're massive. And I'm constantly now having to keep taking files off. The amount of work I do, I never have enough storage, so no matter how much storage you have, you always fill it. What else have we got? I'm this close to cancelling my D850 pre-order and getting the A9. Nikon messed up big time with the release. Why do you say that, Chad? I thought that camera was pretty good from what I've read about it. I still wouldn't be buying a digital SLR, honestly, guys. After using the Canon 5D Mark IV, I would not be wanting to shoot digital SLRs anymore. I just didn't like it at all. Losing that EVF was a nightmare. I hated it. And just the weight alone was a killer. Lugging it around for the day, I had a sore back. I haven't had that for ages. Yeah, and I can understand that, David. Chad, I can understand what you're saying. The A9 for me is the perfect... I honestly think that's the perfect camera for me at this stage. I love using that camera. Focus is incredible. You can focus right across the whole screen. It's super fast, low light's good. The video is really good. It really is a fantastic all-around camera. And if I probably did have the choice between the D850 or the A9, I would get the A9 personally. It depends if you want that file size or not. That's the issue. If you need the resolution, well then the A9 may not be for you. So it just depends on what you're actually after. But the A9 for me definitely is the best camera I've ever owned. What else have we got? Sam said focus on the 50. Samyang 50 is reliable and fast. It's also noisy. Okay, that could be an issue in video. But I don't really notice it unless it's completely silent environment. Not so loud to be obtrusive in a church though. Sam said, in fact, I shot my niece riding her bike towards me with the A7 II, not even the R, and even that with the CAF, it performed decently well. Okay, probably 7 to 10 shots in focus, even shot while wide open. Well, that's really good to know. So they're saying the focus is pretty good on that Samyang 50. Susie's back there, Keith. You can't see because I've got the I've got the questions in front of it there. Delta Dave said, have you ever used SSD drives? Well, I've got that in my Mac Pro here, SSDs. So I do use those, yes. And I also use SSDs in my one of the monitors that I've actually got, the Ninja. The Shogun Ninja has SSD drives as well. Anyone looking to buy a new camera bag, Lower Pro Vertex 300 AW? Why are you trying to sell one, Keith? Studio 96 said, hi David, do you know if the Sony hack will work on my A7R III with the latest firmware because I can't install it? Oh, I don't know. Well, it's working on mine, but I had it installed before that. So I had the hack installed before I put the latest firmware on. Now, perhaps if you hadn't installed it before you put the firmware on, it may not install. I'm not sure. You may have to go online to find out about that, but it's still working for me. I upgraded the firmware, though, with the hack already on there, and it works fine, including the A6300 and A6500, so it works fine for that. But there might be workarounds, I'm not sure. Let someone in the chat may be able to let us know, but it definitely works for me. They haven't released enough supply of the D850. Yeah, I've heard it could be after Christmas before you actually can start to get some of those cameras. So that, yeah, is an issue. Will future A7 X body series bodies get the buffer performance of the A9? I don't think so. They may weigh in the future, but not initially. They've got to have a reason why the A9 would exist. So you're going to find that the buffer is going to be the difference between this camera and the other cameras that are there, because they're pointing this at the sports camera, remember? So there's no way they're going to give you that feature in an A7 III. There's no way they'll give you that feature, because if they did, why would you buy the A9? So it's not going to happen. It might happen in 1-2 years' time. And then the A10 or whatever might be doing 100 frames per second. Well, we don't know. But there's always got to be a difference for the upper camera. And there's no way they can take sales away from the A9 by giving you the same features in an A7 III, for instance. So there will be differences in the camera. Whether that's the dual card slots is also missing. Whether it'll definitely, I doubt, have the buffer that the A9 has. There's no way, I don't reckon that will happen. Keith said Sony will come out with a new A mount. Well, they may. What else have we got? He's saying there'll be an A77 III. David said, I hear you, Keith. Bailey, I buy where I can get the best deal from her. So they're saying Amazon, eBay, or Adorama. Keith said, David Johnson, I'm all Amazon and B&H have the money. Yeah, I mostly use Amazon. Also, all my affiliates are through Amazon. Just be aware, too, that the affiliate links that I have are linked by country. So even though I'm in Australia, if you go into Amazon, it will go back to your country in the UK or the US or Canada, wherever you are from. So please do use my affiliate links, because at least I'll get a little bit of a cutback. It doesn't cost you anymore, but I get a little bit of a cutback from that as well. Now, before we finish, don't forget, guys, to I'm just going to bring up Facebook, because I want to just show you the site that I've got. Let me just bring this up. Where are we? Don't forget to log into this video and photography school. I'm just going to flick over to here. Join this group with us, guys, because it's growing, but basically it's going to have everything. It gives you hints about when I'm going to be coming on live. There you can sort of set I'm going live in 15 minutes. And there's also stacks of stuff that I'm actually posting. That's the new GH5 photo that I took yesterday. I just did a sneak peek to show the quality with that, and I used a 45mm lens on it at 1.7, which is the equivalent of an 85. Again, I've gone to that 85mm focal length, which I adore. That shoot, that video hopefully will come up sometime today. And basically it will have behind the scenes, all stuff like that. I don't stop anything from being posted, so if you want to promote your website or whatever, you can through here as well. And there's always before and after stuff that we put in here. And I'm actually showing videos, and I'm also showing a lot of before and after images as well. If you come down, there's stacks of stuff that I'm showing before and after in here. So if you want to pop in, for instance, I was showing that one, which is before and after, stuff like that. So please join us. And it's basically an expansion of my YouTube channel, so it's an area where you guys can get more in contact with me and ask questions and stuff when I'm not in line. So I'll put that link down below, so please join us through there as well. And it's just basically called Video photography. It's the Photography, Video and Fusion School. That's the page on Facebook, what it's actually linked to, because eventually I'll also be posting a lot about my fusion work on there as well and how that works and things like that too. So we'll be having not just photography, but also videography as well. Let me just go back and just check questions again, just to make sure there was no last ones before I head off and have my coffee, because the coffee is calling me. Where's it gone? Let me just go down here. I've just got to find where... there's the questions. Let's have a look. Just Delta Dave said, Sony really needs to develop some fast telephoto glass. Yeah, that's going to come, Dave. I'm sure they're going to do that over the next 12 months. They have to. It would be silly to release the A9 without releasing some fast telephoto glass. So I'm hoping that is done, especially for the shooting in sports. Keith said he'd been posting on the group a lot, guys. Yes, he has. He's been in there stacks. Well, that might be just about it, guys. So I might leave it there for today. If any questions, leave them down below. I'll post all of these links, like I said, down below as well. So you can go back and look over those as well. Please join us on the Facebook group. And obviously, if you haven't subscribed to my page, I'd love you to join us, because it's growing amazingly, and I can't thank you enough. And it's just a great thing, and I've built some amazing friendships going on there as well. So that's probably about all for now, guys. So we might call it a day, and I'll see you all later. Stay tuned later on this afternoon or late this evening. Hopefully I'll have that first video up for the GH5 that you might want to watch as well. So that's all for now. I'm off to have a coffee. It's, as my American accent would say, it's coffee time. I'm going to go down for a coffee. Is that right? Coffee. It's my New York accent again, guys. I love it. I'll catch you all later. See you guys. Bye.